Hello, beautiful people. How are you doing? How have you been? It's another week. It's another podcast drop from Made for Influence. You know what? Today's podcast episode deserve a Substack. And I think I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to create a write up, maybe from my script, maybe a little different, but it's going to carry the same message from today's podcast. If you want to check that out, I'm going to link my Substack in the description area so that you can go and see some of the articles I have on Substack. Ever since we entered the month of April, I've been feeling different in a good way. Good, excited. Something big is coming. I don't know what, I can't put my hands on it, but I know that God has me on his heart and God has his hands in my life. And that is something to be grateful and thankful for. So I cannot wait to see how this month is going to unfold, how the rest of the year is going to unfold, but I know that my latter is going to be greater than the former. This is a word for somebody. Welcome to the Made Podcast. I am your host, Juliet Olabanji. I am the founder of the Made Org, the premier identity, leadership, and strategic transformation company for ambitious and high capacity women, and also for women in transition. The Made Org equip exceptional women to lead with clarity, direction, and authority. I am also the creator and founder of Rooted Productivity, an intellectual property and framework that equips women to show up with an identity driven execution without burnout. Welcome. Initially, when I thought about this episode, I wanted to name it The Paradox of Spontaneous Success. But why would I even do that? That is too straightforward. So I decided to name it The Perfect Perfectionist. So today we are going to be talking about the perfect perfectionist and why the most ambitious people are also the most stuck. A few years ago, someone I considered a close friend said something that I've never forgotten. We were in a conversation, the type of conversation when you're having a heart to heart girl time, girl talk. And they said, I don't just think you really go through things. Like, I never see you go through things. All I see is your success, and all I see is the finished product. And I remember going quiet, not because I was offended per se, but because I genuinely was stunned. This is one of my closest friend at that time, by the way, because this person I've watched part of my life, part of my journey, and I have not at all been perfect. Not at all. And still, the conclusion she had arrived at was that things just happened for me. Like the finish line appeared without a race. I let it go at that time. I filed it somewhere in the back of my mind and I kept moving. But not too long ago, a different friend said something that pulled that memory right back to the surface. This friend actually had been around for some of my harder seasons. She had seen me navigate real uncertainty, real setbacks, moments of distraught where I genuinely did not know how my story was going to turn out. I genuinely did not know where I was going. I was being broken down. And she saw parts of it, a lot of it actually, in real time. And recently she looked at me and said, I don't know, things just always seem to come easy for you. Uh oh. And I thought, here we go again. Two different women, two different level of proximity to my actual life, two completely different vantage points. And somehow they both arrive at the same destination. The idea that what I have built, what I have walked through, what I have created was in some way effortless, automatic, inevitable. And here is why I'm telling you this at the top of this episode and why I need you to stay with me. Because when those two moments collided in my mind, I did not get frustrated. What I felt was recognition because I realized that I have watched this exact same dynamic play out in women that I've coached, in women that I admire, in women that are in my network, in my community over and over again. And the damage it does is quiet but deep. So today we are going to talk about it, not as a concept, but as a real thing that might be happening in your life now, possibly without you even realizing it. Before we actually dismantle this mindset, let me tell you the similarities between these two friends that said what they said. We're looking at outcomes and performing an erasure. Maybe not maliciously, or maybe not consciously maliciously, because it's important to point that out. Neither of those women woke up and decided to minimize my journey. That's what I believe. They were doing something that a lot of us actually do, that is almost automatic in ways that we relate to other people's life, especially people that we admire or feel are ahead of us in some way. They were seeing the finished painting and forgetting, or perhaps never fully registering, that every painting begins as a blank canvas. And before the canvas, there is the idea that does not quite work. And before that, there is the supplies you have not yet learned how to use, and years sometimes between the impulse and the image. What my friends saw was the result, and the results looked clean. The process must have been clean too, I guess, in their head. This is what I call the paradox of spontaneous success. It is one of the most quietly destructive forces I have seen at work in visionaries, ambitious women, people that have the inner knowing of greatness, because it does not just shape how they see other people, it shapes how they see themselves. And here's what I mean. When you watch someone else's journey through the lens of only the outcome, you begin to unconsciously measure your own process against their result, not against where they were when they were where you are, against what they are now, against where they are now, against the finish, against the polished version, against the thing that was years and sometimes decades in the making being presented to you that is simply just arrived. It's an overnight success. When you are a woman who cares deeply about excellence, when you have a vision sometimes that matter, this comparison does not motivate you. It does the opposite. It makes you profoundly, almost painfully aware of where your work is not yet that thing that you imagine, where you are not yet that thing or that person. I remember when I had a creative agency, and even when I was in corporate and working with products, I would build out a avatar, a user, an end user for products or campaigns that I'm working on. So let's do the same thing for this topic that we're talking about today and see if you can recognize or if any parts of this feels familiar. Genuinely talented, not in the way that people say just to be nice or to be kind, but in a real way, a talent that is undeniable. She has a vision that is clear and specific. And honestly, the vision is valuable and important. The kind of vision that, if it were executed, would create real impact for real people. She works hard, she researches, she prepares, she thinks carefully about what she's building, and she holds it to a high standard because she knows what quality looks like and she refuses to offer anything less. And yes, she is not where she wants to be, not because she doesn't have the ability, not because the market is not ready for what she has to offer, not even because the timing is wrong, but because she is waiting, always in some form, waiting until she has more clarity, waiting for the right time, waiting for the credibility, waiting for people to validate her. But the work is never quite ready because the standard she is measuring against is not the standard of where she is in her process. It is the standard of the finished painting she saw someone else holding. It's the standard of the finished painting she envisioned in her head. It is the standard of the finished painting that is the ideal. It is the standard of the outcome applied to the beginning. This woman is what I call the perfect perfectionist. I was, matter of fact, that woman. And I need you to understand something about her and about you. This is what I understood about myself. If this is you, before we go any further, I want you to know that what you're afraid of and what I discovered about myself is that I was afraid of being seen in the middle. I was afraid of being the version of myself that is still becoming. And I was afraid that if I release that work before it's perfect, before I become this ideal self, then the imperfection will say something about me. I was afraid that this imperfection will disqualify me, that something about me is not ready, and I pushed it way before it was ready. And here's the part that you should also think about. Fear is not irrational. It is the product of an highly intelligent person, a highly discerning mind. It is the product of someone who has consumed enough excellence to know what it looks like and genuinely care about offering it. It's the person that cares about quality that you will see sometimes that they hesitate about putting something that is subpar out. The standard itself is not the problem. The timeline that you are demanding that the standard be activated on is the problem here. So I want to go back to my own two friends for a moment because what strikes me now, what I find almost tender about those two conversations is that neither of them intended harm. They loved me. They were observing what they could see, and what they could see was the result. What they could not see was the version of me that did not know what I was doing. The version of me that just did it anyway, but did it with some sort of confidence. Even though maybe behind closed doors, I wasn't as confident. I was just like, I either do it or I do it. And they did not see the seasons where I was building in complete obscurity, showing up for an audience that barely existed, showing up anyway, refining a message I was still not sure of, scratching up my script, scratching up the message and rewriting it over and over again, pivoting so many times that I sometimes look unserious, doing things I did not have the credibility for or the credibility to carry. The rooms that I walked into before I knew how to hold myself in them, the work that I released, that honestly, I'm genuinely glad that a lot of people have forgotten. None of that was visible to them, or maybe they just chose to skip over that part. And so none of that was real to them. And this is the mechanism of the paradox. The mess does not make it to the highlight reel. The mess does not make it to the bowl on top. It can sometimes come off as people being dishonest, but I don't think so. It is because by the time that you are visible enough to be watched, you've already survived the part that would have given them the full picture. Sometimes the full picture is being crafted in your workroom. That was a metaphor, by the way. You are only ever seen at the level of what you have already overcome. Which means that the woman you are watching, the people that you admire, the ones that their results feel so effortless and whose trajectory feels so clean, she had a middle, she had a beginning. She had a long, unglamorous, uncertain, imperfect time, season. She didn't just arrive where you are seeing her now. You just arrived too late to see it. And honestly, this also applies to the woman that is watching you. She's doing the same thing. She's looking at your finish line and she's calling it your starting point. The question is, are you doing it to yourself? Because everything I had described so far is a pattern. But if I only name the pattern, I leave you with awareness and no real way forward. So I want us to go 1 mile deeper. The perfect perfectionist is not you at your core. This is a productivity problem. I would say a fraction of it is a productivity problem. It's not a strategy problem because a lot of people will say, oh, my strategy is wrong. Maybe if I copy this person's strategy, then I will get the same result that they're getting. No, at the core of it, it is an identity problem. And here's what I mean by that. When you don't have a settled, anchored sense of who you are outside of what you produce, the work that you produce carries a weight it was never designed to carry. It becomes evidence for whether you are capable, evidence for whether you are credible, evidence for whether you are the right person and you deserve the vision that you've been given. Evidence for whether the things you feel called to is actually real and whether you have been quietly overestimating yourself this whole time. And when the work has to carry all of this, it cannot be imperfect. Because imperfect work does not just mean that the thing needs refinement, it means you might not be who you thought you were. And this is why imperfectionism in ambitious women is so rarely about the work itself. It's about what the work is standing in for. It is the defense mechanism of a woman who has not yet found a place to stand that is not contingent on the outcome. Here's the painful irony of it all. The woman who you are watching calling a life effortless is often stuck in this exact same place. You have made her success the evidence that you need before you can begin. You're waiting to see proof from someone whose process you can observe that it's possible. And without knowing it, she has now become your standard, your moving finish line, the version of spontaneous success that is keeping you in place. She was where you are, and you don't even know that. And you are waiting for something she already has access to, but cannot see because you are measuring the wrong thing. And this is why I say it's a pattern. It's not a personality flaw or character defect. A pattern that gets passed quietly from one woman to the other through the simple human act of watching others without the full context. So, what do we do with this? I want to give you something practical. It's not a 5-step formula, but it is a reframe, a real one. And my friends will tell you this. I love to reorient them and give them a perspective shift. The people you have been watching, the one whose success has felt like a standard you have to meet before you begin, they built their capacity through outputs, not through preparation. They did not wait until they were ready to produce excellent work. They produced work until the work became excellent. Those are two completely different sequences, and the sequence you choose determines everything. I was just talking to my friend and we had a conversation about a skill that she had that has the opportunity to make her more money. And from that conversation, I'm telling you that readiness is not a prerequisite for beginning. It is a reward for having begun. Readiness is not a prerequisite for beginning. It is a reward for having begun. Every unfinished thing that you are sitting on somewhere, every half-built vision, offer, every idea you have revisited and quietly closed because it was not quite there yet, those are not evidence against you. Those are not evidence of failure. They are the things that you need to hold tangibly as evidence of a woman who is in active conversation with her vision. You might be multi-passionate. You might be multifaceted. All of these are evidence of active conversation of where you're going, or maybe even what season you're in. You're now waiting for inspiration to fully form. You are in the middle, and that sometimes can look unclear until you walk through it. It's unglamorous, and the middle is unavoidable. The middle is a path, not a detour. The middle is your work developing. The middle is not the evidence of your intelligence. The woman that you're becoming has always been who you are. It has just been revealed in phases through the process of doing the thing that you keep preparing to do. So before I let you go, I want you to come back to where we started. My friend who said she had never seen me go through anything. My other friend who said things comes to me easy and I don't really have to work hard for it. I do not hold either of those conversations against them. I understand now what they are actually telling me. They were telling me that they had made my story into something that made sense to them from where they are standing. They needed a narrative that explained the distance between their current reality and what they were watching me build. And it comes easy for her, fits the narrative. But here is something that I want you to take away from this. Someone is watching you right now, and someone is telling themselves the same story. Someone is looking at your life and what you've built and what you're carrying and constructing an explanation for the gap that involves lucky, gifted, skilled, or it just works for her. They don't know about the middle. They don't know about the years of toiling and tilling. They don't know about the unfinished canvases. They do not know about the version of you that was building in the dark before anything became even visible, before anything made sense, before there was evidence of success and proof of concept that it was going to work. That was doing that. And that version of you, I want to say that if you harness it right, would not lead to resentments, jealousy, envy, or even mediocrity. It would lead you to mastery in making, redefining your own lane of success. Because you don't have to be perfect in the process. You do not have to have arrived to be moving in the same direction. And you do not have to have the finished painting to prove that you are an artist. I just need you to ship the work. I just need you to ship the work, release that thing, show up before you're ready. Because influence does not wait for perfection. Influence does not wait for perfect. It moves. And when it moves, it becomes more recognizable by people. So, my love, that is the end of today's podcast. Remember that we are going to go on a month break in the month of May and come back with season 2 in the month of June. It's going to be pretty exciting, and I will see you next week. But before we go, make sure that you're following our show. This is really going to help us and is going to announce us to other people that are looking for content like this. Follow our show, share this with 2 of your friends. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or even YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and you're following and hit the notification so that whenever we post, you get an alert. Ding! That we are here and we are showing up for you every week for resources to help you in your journey of transitioning, in your capacity building, and also in your identity. Go to themadeorg.com, themadeorg.com. I'm your host, Juliet Olabanji, the founder of The Made Org and the creator of Rooted Productivity. Stay bold and don't you dare play small. Bye-bye.